Hey everyone, welcome back to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're new here, you are in for a treat. We are currently going through a new series within the North Dakota Teaching Podcast, which is all about featuring first year teachers through their first year of teaching. And let me tell you, it has been amazing so far. If you haven't already listened, you can go back to the first episode where we introduced Megan and she talked all about her little kindergartners, and it was seriously the most awesome podcast. Over the past 4 years, first year teachers have learned all of the latest and greatest things that are preparing them to become a teacher, and now is their chance to shine and share all of that information with all of you. Although we know being a first year teacher comes with highs, it also comes with some lows. This podcast series is not only going to showcase some of the awesome ideas that first year teachers have, but it's also an opportunity to talk about many of the things that didn't go as planned or even struggles that they have faced and had to overcome.
Welcome to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. Whether you're a first-year teacher, veteran teacher, or just a mom trying to gain some new insights, you are right where you are meant to be. Kayla Durkin, founder of the Blossoming Teacher course, is passionate about helping new teachers blossom into the teacher they were born to be. Kayla wants to help inspire teachers to be their best self, whether that means sharing about personal or professional development, self-care, or the latest and most effective teaching strategies. Through this podcast, you will hear from real teachers sharing their stories about teaching, all with one main goal in mind: to be able to make an impact and help other teachers blossom. And with that, here is your host, Kayla Durkin.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. Today you are in for a treat. Today we have one of our Blossoming Teacher members here, and her name is Acadia, and she is seriously such a phenomenal first year teacher, and I'm so excited for her to share all of the information that she has to share with you. Today we're going to be talking a lot about math, a little bit about distance learning, and even honestly a little bit about the fires that are going on right now. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Acadia. Hi, Acadia. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, Kayla. How are you?
I'm doing good as well, thank you. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a first year teacher in Colorado. I grew up in a pretty small town called Greeley, and that's also where I went to school for college. So I went to the University of Northern Colorado there, and I got a bachelor's of science in mathematics and then an emphasis in secondary teaching. So the really cool thing about my school is you major in your content area if you're a secondary teacher, and then you still have your secondary license once you graduate. So that was really cool because I got a lot of exposure to both math and then also to teaching as well. So I really loved that aspect of it. And I'm a first year teacher in Longmont, so I moved about 45 minutes away from my hometown of Greeley to start my first year of teaching.
Wow, that is awesome. I didn't know that you could get your degree in your content area and then add secondary on top of it. So that's really neat that your program did that. So what are you teaching right now?
So right now I am teaching seventh grade math. So 2 sections of regular seventh grade math, 2 sections of accelerated seventh grade math, and then 1 section of geometry to eighth grade students. So we're using a high school curriculum, but the students are in eighth grade, which is really neat.
Oh my gosh, we're definitely going to have to dive into that. But first, let's just talk about how's everything going? Have you been doing distance learning? What's going on with all of that?
Yeah, so we started out with doing all online learning for the first 7 weeks. And so they let us know a couple weeks before the school year started that we were going to be doing it all online. But my school's expectation was that we still went into our classroom. So we still got our classroom set up, and we were really supposed to be ready to switch to in-person learning at any time. And then about 3 weeks ago, our superintendent sent out an email saying there's going to be this live discussion, this forum. Teachers, if you can come, go ahead and come. And so I kind of figured we were going to make the switch, and that's exactly what happened. Is the rates in our county were going better, so more negative tests, less COVID cases, and so then we decided to make the decision to come back in a hybrid setting. So students were grouped into 2 groups, mostly alphabetical, or just to kind of make the class sizes a lot smaller. So right now I teach 5 classes. And so half of my kids are online at one point, and then half the kids are in person, and then they switch. So I see the same kids on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then the same kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They also have a third group too for those students who have IEPs or other special accommodations. And so they come in every day. So there's some students I get to see every day, and then some students I see twice a week. And then Fridays are office hours or small groups where I can have one-on-one conversations, check-ins, all of that, which is really cool as well. It also allows me to have time to prep for the next week, which is really cool. So that's what we've been doing. So we just finished off our first quarter last Thursday. So tomorrow we're actually starting our second quarter, which is really exciting. And hopefully we can continue to be in person and hybrid for the rest of the school year.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot going on that you just shared with me. First of all, that you were doing distance learning, then you started this hybrid model. You had groups of kids that were coming every other day, but you also had a group of kids that was coming every day. And you do get time on Fridays to plan, which is awesome. So that leads me to the next thing I'm wondering is, for anyone who is maybe still doing distance learning or having to do a hybrid model, how did you manage all of it?
So my school is really great in the sense that they don't have a strict way of like, this is what we need you to do. They kind of let it up to the discretion of what grade you're teaching, what content you're teaching, or really your personal preference. So the way I've been doing it, and I found that it's been the most successful, is having students that we all come in at the same time. So then I have the people in person, and then I have my online students, and we use WebEx. So everyone comes in via WebEx or in person, and we do our warm-up together. So our warm-ups are usually about 3 questions. And during that time, I take attendance. I'm checking, make sure everyone has their iPads out and they're working on the warm-up. And then after we go through the warm-up, I let the online kiddos know what they need to be working on. And so I always have an agenda slide that's posted in Schoology. We use Schoology. With every link that they might need, and then also a weekly schedule of kind of if they want to move on to the next thing, they can do that too, specifically for the students who are all online. There's also a group of some students that are all online too, in case if they've been exposed to COVID. And so we have like maybe 4 people total. So then they also have the option that they can move at a faster pace if they want to as well. So I have that schedule, and then I have all of my agendas ready, and then I let them go work independently. And then in class, that's kind of where we have more of our mathematical discussions and that discourse where I can really talk to the students and kind of see where they're at and what we need to review. And then I kind of switch those days. So then we start out the same class with the warm-up, and then they go on and do their own thing. So that's kind of how I've been doing it. I feel like it works the best, and I've been recording a lot of myself just teaching on my iPad using like Notability or different apps, and then have students watch that. So then when they come in class, they can ask those questions, and then we can go into examples as well.
So that sounds phenomenal. It makes it sound like you have it all together, which I'm sure you do. But how are you staying organized through all of that? Like, how are you you're planning for multiple classes, you're planning for tons of different students. So what tips and tricks do you have for teachers who are going through this that just need a better way to stay organized with all of this?
So I have like a running agenda slides for all of the things that we've done this whole year. And so that's just saved that I have privately just on my Google Slides. And so that kind of helps me remind me, okay, what did we talk about last week? Because like you said, sometimes it can get a little crazy with, okay, where did we actually end up? Did we even get to this? Did we go faster and need me to kind of adjust as we went? So I have a kind of a running list in a sense of everything that we've been doing. I'm also really fortunate to teach the first 2 periods, and then I have 2 periods of collab time and plan time. So I usually have about an hour every day to get planned and prepped. And so that's where I really try and use that time to organize my documents. I always title everything in a way that I can remember. So, like warm up, so WU, so I know where those are at. So really just kind of using different strategies on my computer to make sure everything's organized, and then that running list as well. And then I do have a mentor at my school who teaches one other of the sections of 7th grade math. And so we kind of share some ideas and documents too. So then I have a separate folder on my email for things that we're kind of doing at the same time that I can go back and look at.
That sounds absolutely incredible. You might be one of the only few who is that organized, but for me, when I first started teaching, oh my gosh, I would just download document after document or whatever it was, and it would be wherever on my computer. And the way I found things was I would click sort by date, and I would be like, gosh, I think that was like around September 14th that I looked at that. So then I'd have to click through every document from that day and find it. So I'm getting better now, but kudos to you. I think people need that. And sorting things in your email too. I do love the files on email. So if people aren't using or those folders, if people aren't using those folders, that's a game changer.
Mhm.
We can, I'll ask you what you have in a minute, but so for example, folders that I have my save folder, my upcoming folder, my important folder, parent emails folder, things that you know you want to go back to again and again that are really important. So do you have any other folders you want to add to that, Acadia?
Yeah, like you said, parent folders and then student folders. I always have those separate as well. For my seventh grade meetings, we always kind of have an agenda ready to go. So we always send that to each other. So I have that saved too, so I can always go back and look at what did we talk about this week? What do I need to follow up on? So seventh grade folder. I think those are the really big main ones, and then a math, just our math cohort folder as well. Those are some really good ones to have.
That's so awesome. So, I know you said you have one person you do a lot of planning with. Is that the only other math person at your school, or how big is your school?
So we have, I think there's 5 of us that teach there, and one's part-time. But one of the other math teachers, she's also part-time. And she's my mentor. So we do a lot together where we have meetings every Tuesday where we meet for like almost an hour, and we just kind of do check-ins, and she gives me a lot of information, which is great. And then the other 2 math teachers that are there full-time, we meet every once in a while. We usually try and meet at least once a month just to kind of talk about how things are going. Or when we made our switch from online to hybrid, we kind of talked about expectations for what we were doing with our curriculum, how students would be turning in work, all of that. So
That's awesome. And I think that's huge. For those of you who are listening to this will have already happened, but tomorrow, my Instagram post, my Student Teacher Tip Tuesday idea is make sure you have a mentor and make sure you find that mentor fast. And I think Acadia can attest to that just having that person that you can go to, that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can plan with, and just count on to help you through your first year of teaching is huge. Would you agree that's helped you significantly?
oh, absolutely. I remember when I was looking at schools, like when I was getting ready for my interviews and all of that, someone asked me, they were like, well, you should ask if they have a mentor program or a first year teacher program. And I was like, I don't think I need that. I'm going to be a first year teacher. I'll be fine on my own. It'll be okay. But that was something that I was like, well, I'll just ask, just to see. And my school district has done an amazing job with getting us ready. And so we were assigned a mentor. And then we also had a new teacher orientation for like a week before school started. And then we still have an induction cohort, and that we meet monthly as well with that. And then I have my mentor and I have a learning coach. So I think it is so important because it's really nice to just be able to have those random questions to just ask someone. There's a lot of times where just, how do you use the coffee machine? Where do you go to put your lunch in the fridge? Just little things like that you need. And then once you get kind of teaching, just asking for support, like how would you handle this situation? It's so important to have a mentor and really to be able to ask them questions. Yeah, it's so helpful. So definitely see if your school has one and find one. They're awesome.
I think it's huge too. And many of you know, last year would have been my 5th year teaching. And even though I was a 5th year teacher, when I moved districts because I was new to the district, I automatically got assigned a mentor in the building. And even though I'd been teaching the past 4 years previously, and I knew a lot of the stuff that teaching had to do with, I didn't know a lot of the building stuff. Where is the coffee maker? Where can I have my lunch? Stuff like that. So I always just kept a little sticky note on my desk, and it was like a running list of, okay, when I meet with my mentor on Wednesdays, these are all the questions that I want to ask to be sure that I can just get that help. So I think that's so true, Acadia, that you might not in the beginning think you need it, but
Right.
it's going to make a big difference.
Mhm.
So we know that's been a huge help. What are some of your other big wins so far throughout the past 9 weeks?
Yeah, so our school, I think, just has such a great community, and so I think it's been a lot easier to be positive just because there's so many of the other teachers there that are there and positive, and that they're willing to try new things and support you. So a lot of the things that I think that have been going well online is just I always would try and have a warm up that was really engaging for students. Even though we were online, I try to start out with warm-ups that didn't necessarily have a correct answer. So some of the examples I were doing was like which one doesn't belong and why. Would you rather's like math edition, just so students could kind of start chatting either in the chat box or if they would raise their hand, then I could unmute them and they could share their answers that way. And so I think with starting that way with all my classes, it helped us transition into in-person learning, that they still kind of felt comfortable in my class and could still ask questions and already kind of had that community, which I thought was super cool, and that students were willing to ask questions and offer their opinions, which I thought was really neat.
Absolutely. That is so amazing that it's your first year of teaching, your first year with these groups of kids, and you knew, okay, if I want them talking when they get into the classroom, I have to find a way to get them talking now. I absolutely love those questions where there's not necessarily a right answer, because that brings up so much conversation for kids. And not that you want them necessarily debating, but it's a great time for them to just kind of go back and forth and agree to disagree and stuff like that. So, what a fantastic tool to build relationships. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that's it. Also, our school is really big on technology, so that's been something I've been really having more experience with. Is all of the students get their own iPads, and so they have a lot of apps that they can use on their iPads, or I can even, like I said, have those agenda slides ready, so then students can look at that while I'm doing other things. And so, really, just using different technologies in my classroom has been really important. Especially since students can't really be, right next to each other working in groups, that we still have that technology, that they can still collaborate even if it looks different than sitting right next to someone and talking. So I've been using a lot of technology in my classroom, which has been really cool.
So, do you have any favorite iPad apps that you'd like to recommend people get if they're also using iPads?
Notability is something I really, really like. There's a ton of different features on there, but we also have an Apple Pencil. So when we were doing our remote learning, I would sometimes teach from our curriculum and just use the student notes and then write with my Apple Pencil just the notes that they have. We could do examples that way. You can go in and clip different things in Notability and make your own documents, which is really neat. You can highlight and have different colored pens and stuff, which I thought was super cool. And students can actually download the homework and do it that way, which is also nice, especially with COVID. You don't want to collect a lot of paper. So if you can have them do it online and then submit it super, super easy back to Schoology, that's been really cool. So Notability has for sure been my go-to app
That
for.
sounds like an awesome app. So, if you're listening to this, make sure you download it. And if you have an Apple Pencil, that sounds really cool as well. But if you don't have an Apple Pencil, I'm sure you can just use a cheaper stylus. Obviously, not going to be as nice, but might still be as effective. So, those are some of your great things that are going for you. Do you mind sharing maybe anything that's been a struggle or hasn't went as well?
Yeah, I think the first thing is now it seems to be going a lot better, but again, building relationships is always my goal as a teacher, and it was really hard while we were doing our distance learning. Obviously, there were some students that always came to class with their cameras on and would be willing to chat in the box consistently, or stay after class and we could chat or come to my office hours on Fridays. But there was also a lot of students who didn't have their cameras on, didn't chat in the box. And so that was really hard to build relationships with them online because you only had, you know, 30 minutes every day to see them. But if they didn't turn their cameras on or if they didn't respond in the chat, it was really hard to build those relationships. So I really started to try and reach out to families and kind of just make sure they were doing okay. Or if they turned in a homework assignment, just saying great job and leaving feedback on that as well, just to kind of start building that relationship, even though I couldn't see them sometimes. I knew that they were there. So just kind of celebrating the small wins, I think was something that was helpful. Again, as a first year teacher, it's hard to build relationships with students because this is your first time meeting a lot of them. You don't have the backgrounds of knowing their siblings or knowing their family members or even having them previously. So it's hard to build relationships, but I think it's something you just have to keep up with and keep trying and reaching out to them. And eventually, it takes time.
I think that's huge. And kudos to you for taking that time and the effort to reach out to families and to just try and make those connections because I mean, sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. But for the families that do take note that, wow, my teacher took time to reach out to me, that's a pretty big deal for some of them. So, way to go. I'm sure even if you weren't able to make connections with all of them, that's still really important that you're doing that. So, is there any other parts of distance learning or now getting back into the classroom that's been a little bit harder for you?
I think the first couple minutes of class is always really hard because now we have longer passing periods too to clean our classrooms, which is great because then students they only have specific ways they can go in the hallway. So one hallway they can only go on the right hand side, all of that. So it takes them longer to get to class. But then there's always students kind of waiting outside, getting to my classroom super early, and then I'm still trying to clean up and that sort of thing, and then trying to log into WebEx and kind of start the warm up, let them know what they need to be doing. So I think kind of that classroom management piece has been something that's been a little stressful at first because it always seems like there's 1,000 things going on, and there's people in front of you that are kind of either talking or asking you questions, people online trying to ask you questions. So that was a little bit tough, but I think kind of once I found what works best, it's been going a lot better, but it's definitely a little overwhelming at times.
And I think that's something that all teachers struggle with, especially teachers who are in the middle school or high school setting. I know even for me, after 5 years, we only had, it was either 2 or 3 minutes between classes, but it was like, okay, I need to switch my agenda slide. Okay, I need to quick either use the restroom or make sure I'm in the hallway watching kids or making sure I'm greeting everyone as they come in the door. And it's like you're just trying to do so many tasks at one time in this small amount of time. And of course, you do have those kids who are showing up early, but then you have those kids who are coming in late. And so
Right.
I can totally understand how just trying to find a routine that's going to work for you, it might take a little bit of time. And I think that's okay. But I think it's awesome that you're already recognizing, okay, this is a stressor or this is a pain point in my day. So kind of just reflecting on that and seeing what you can do differently is already phenomenal. So you're on the right track with that. Well, Acadia, we've talked a lot about distance learning, your hybrid schedule. Let's talk a little bit about math because I know there's some math teachers on here who want to know more about what you're doing with your discourse, how you're having these conversations with your students. So, if you have any awesome math tips or tricks you want to share with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, so one of the really nice things about being in person is I can finally use my number line that I have in my classroom. We've been talking a lot about different types of numbers and integers and rational numbers and adding and subtracting rational numbers. And that was something students had really struggled with was on the iPad, I had a number line app, but I don't think they could really see kind of what going positive and negative really looked like. And so now that I'm in the classroom, like I can stand in front of my number line and actually move, which has been something that's been super helpful as well, is just kind of having that physical movement part where students can actually see you, which is really cool. Again, I really like to start out with warm-ups where there's no right or wrong answer, where students can kind of just explain their thinking. I also like to do a find the mistake. So I always pretend like I'm solving a problem, maybe on the homework or something, and that I made a mistake and I need their help to try and fix it. I'm not sure if that would work in high school. You might have to hype it up a little bit more, but in middle school, I found they really like it. And so that's something I really like to do too, and kind of capitalizing on that. Everyone makes mistakes, even I make mistakes all the time, and that's okay. And so just kind of using that mistakes warm up as, or even just that class activity as just, it's okay to make mistakes, and now how can we fix it and move on? It's totally fine. That's something else I found has really been helpful with math. Our curriculum is really good too, that there's like the online part, there's homework that we can pull from as well. So that's really nice. We also have a math program coordinator who kind of does the whole scope and sequence. So I don't really have to worry about that, which has been really cool. And he's, said like this is the main focus for each unit that we really want to hit on. The other stuff, if you can kind of incorporate it in, great. If not, there will be time at another point for students to get that information. So I've been really fortunate with that of just kind of knowing the main points of what I need to focus on. Has been really great as well. And again, I was trying to encourage that mathematical discourse, which again can be hard, especially since we've only been in the classroom for a couple weeks, getting all of my students to talk. But right now, one of my classes has 4 kids and another has about 16. So then it has kind of that smaller class size where students, I think, are a little more apt to speak up because it's so much smaller than the average class of like 25. So that's been really nice as well.
That's really cool, Acadia. I mean, it's super awesome as well that you have that math coordinator there that's kind of helping you guys along the way. So, aside from that math coordinator, though, you're still doing a lot of your day-to-day planning, correct?
Right.
So you're planning for, you said your 7th grade math class, your geometry class. Was there one more?
No, because right now my regular and my advanced kids are pretty much doing the same thing. So
Okay,
yeah, it's just pretty
so
much.
with those 2 that you're
Mhm.
planning for, though, do you have any tips and tricks of how you like to plan your math to be sure that you know you're hitting those important things?
Yeah, I printed off our scope and sequence for just right now, so I kind of have it as more of like a checklist. And then when I go to print off everything or to download stuff on my iPad, I kind of just go and see, okay, this is really hitting this target that we want to make sure we're hitting, or this lesson I'm going to pull just a couple problems from or a couple examples from, and then we're going to move into something that's actually on the scope and sequence. So I kind of just look at all of that and try and plan what I want to do. And then usually with like the students' homework or attendance questions, that's where I really try and hit those main points that we're really trying to focus on.
That's awesome. Good for you. So, with all of that, and maybe you haven't thought of it, or maybe you don't yet, and that's okay, but do you have any fun math activities that you're looking forward to, or any projects that you'll maybe get to do throughout the year that you know about?
So one of the other teachers that's right next door to me, she teaches computer science, and she did a little project for the students where they had to find a computer scientist that they felt, I think she said something like they would have been friends with if they lived in the same period or something like that, or someone that they could relate to. And so I think doing something like that with a mathematician would be really cool. I did something like that in my history of math class in college that I thought was super cool. And I loved, I love the history part of the math as well. So I thought that would be really a fun project for students to work on. I've always wanted to do like actual stations with the students where they need to, they'll start at a station and then they'll solve problems and almost do like a stations or scavenger hunt even with different problems. I think that would be super cool. Really anything that can get them kind of talking to other people. And again, I don't know when that'll be, but just kind of getting them up and moving, and for me to be able to actually see their work is what I really want to try and incorporate in the next few months.
That's awesome, Acadia. That sounds so cool. I think that project with mathematicians from the past would be really cool. And it's also a great way to just incorporate those other standards as well. So even if you could meet up with English teacher or something like that and kind of say, hey, what are some of the big standards that you have to hit in your class that I can make sure my students focus on when they are working on their project would be really awesome as well.
Yeah,
And then
that's a great idea to
some
partner with. Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that.
And then the other thing I was going to say is as for like station activities and stuff like that, there are seriously so many fun ones. I'm not sure because of COVID how things would look, but I did a lot of station stuff with my 7th and 8th graders, and we would do it. I don't know if you can go out in the hallway in your classroom, but we would go out into the hallway and I'd have all these stations posted down the lockers, and everyone knew, oh, if we're hanging up stations, that means it's going to be a really fun day. And just the kids seeing that the stations were hung up in the morning would make them so excited. So, I mean, I know things look a little bit different with COVID, but maybe if, in the spring regulations go down or something, we might have to do some chatting on that because students really do, especially those middle school students who want to be up and moving. They just
Mhm.
love that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Acadia, you've had a lot of great stuff to share already, but I think we're kind of getting close to our time limit here. So, I just want to know, do you have any big things that you would like to share with either student teachers or teachers who are getting ready to go into their first year of teaching? Just any advice that you maybe have for them?
Yeah, so for student teaching, I think student teaching is such an important experience because it's really the time for you to figure out who you truly are as a teacher and still have that mentor support, and you're taking over a classroom. And so I think it's such an important time for you to really kind of try things out and ask a ton of questions. So that's my big advice. Something else that someone told me to do while student teaching that I did, and I thought it was so helpful, was to go and observe other teachers and just kind of see how they interact, even with students you already have or other students as well. My mentor teacher for student teaching was a big old math teacher. He was a coach. So he was completely different in terms of his teaching than how I am. He had that coach aspect. He was like almost like 6'4", just a big guy. And so he would teach completely different than how I would teach, which was great. And he still gave me a ton of great ideas and everything like that. And he really had that emphasis on relationships, which was great. But there was other teachers that I met that I knew I would have a more similar teaching style to. So I would go and observe them every once in a while. And I think that really helped me kind of take bits and pieces from different teachers that I saw that I really resonated with, and then incorporate that into my teaching. And I thought that was really cool. Also with student teaching, really just volunteering for anything that you can. I volunteered for lunch duty every once in a while if they needed someone to fill in. And that's a great way for the school to see like that you are willing to do what you can. It gives you another opportunity to talk to other teachers or talk with your students while they're eating. So that was a really fun thing to do as well. So really just kind of volunteering for whatever. Also trying to go to staff meetings or department meetings or grade-wide meetings was super helpful as well. It helps you build relationships with your other teachers, get really good ideas, ask questions again. So I thought that was a great thing to do, is just do what you can and, volunteer or offer to do whatever you can as well. And then also with your first year teaching, something I've really been trying to do is just give myself grace and just know that, this is a tough time, and know that I'm doing my best. And that's all I can ask for. Also taking time for yourself, even if you're a student teacher or first year teacher, or becoming a teacher in college, just take time for yourself. It can be a lot sometimes. And so just making sure that you are the best that you can be, and really taking time to take care of yourself, and then you can take care of your students as well. So those are kind of the things I've really noticed last year or so of what has been really helpful.
I love all of that, Acadia. I'm just going to take a step back and start with how you said go and observe anyone and everyone that you can. And even after you're done student teaching in your first year, your second year, even your fifth or sixth or 20th year of teaching, that's something that you're continually going to pick up little bits and pieces. And it doesn't have to be 3 blocks away from you. It doesn't have to be the other town away. You can go and observe the teacher right next door to you. Just going to that teacher across the hall or right next door, even if you think you know that teacher's teaching style, you're going to pick up so many awesome things that they're doing that you're going to say, hey, either I can really make that work for me, or maybe that's not going to work for me, but that gives me an idea to maybe I could try this or that. So I absolutely love that. And then, now I forgot, what was the second thing you said?
Volunteer for whatever you can and go to different meetings and that sort of thing.
Yes, that's huge, because if you're doing that when you're student teaching, that's only going to prepare you for your first year of teaching. If you're able to sit in on an IEP and see the flow of that, or even if you are able to go into the lunchroom and kind of see how lunch works, because lunch can be a chaotic time in buildings, but it's also just a phenomenal time, like you said, to chat with your students who are eating lunch and just see that different side of them that you don't see in the classroom. So that was super cool as well. And then as a first year teacher, yes, just giving yourself grace and making sure that you are who your students need you to be. There is a quote by John Gordon. I don't know if any of you have heard of John Gordon, but he talks a lot about how you wouldn't go to work if you had the flu. And so it's the same thing. Like if you are burnt out and run down, you're not going to be any better than if you went to work with the flu. You need to make sure that you're fueling yourself so that you are exactly who your students need to be. So I love that so much, Acadia. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you have shared today. I know there are going to be so many student teachers, first-year teachers, and even teachers who have been teaching for a while who are going to listen to this podcast and just walk away with so many phenomenal things. And I really hope that they do reach out to you. So do you have either an Instagram or a Facebook page or anything that people who are listening could possibly follow you on?
Yeah, so my Instagram is just ms.gurney, which is my last name. So ms.gurney. And then my Facebook is just my name, Acadia Gurney. So yeah, you can always go on there and private message me if you have any questions or anything like that. Or if you teach in Colorado, that would be super cool to chat with you about that as well. So yeah, I would love for you to message me with anything, any questions, or if you just need someone to listen to what you have, I'm here for you. Absolutely.
That is so awesome. Acadia has so many tips that she can share with you. I mean, she's been doing it all. She did distance learning, she did hybrid learning, she's doing face-to-face learning. She is not only going through a pandemic, but she's also teaching through the unknown of these wildfires. Do you want to touch on that for just a quick minute, Acadia?
Yeah, so I'm in Colorado, and right now we have one fire that just made it to be the largest fire in Colorado history. And then in my county where I live now, there's also a fire that's like a couple miles away from where I'm living and stuff, and it's in the school district that I teach at. And so that fire is starting to become really big as well. Luckily, we did have a little bit of rain yesterday, so hopefully it keeps raining and helping out the fires as well. But yeah, we have a lot of fire. I was telling Kayla too that it almost looked like overcast all day today because it was just all the smoke. So that's been really crazy as well.
Gosh, there's just so many things that you guys as first year teachers are navigating, and you are seriously rocking it. So keep up the good work, Acadia. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for everything that you have shared with anyone. And again, if you need anything, reach out to Acadia on Instagram because she is more than willing to help offer advice. She's seriously just a phenomenal person. So thank you so much for everyone who listened today. We will catch you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Be sure to tune in to the next episode for more teaching tips to make an impact. Until next time.